To the Town Council Candidate Forum. This, I think, is the fourth or fifth year that VFW has hosted events like this. So, like I said, thank you very much for coming. I'm going to have a few remarks before we turn it over to Mark Carners, the moderator for tonight. But first off, would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, one thing, the wireless mics that the moderator and the audience is going to be using, you have to use them like you're a rock star. You have to talk into them, because if you talk like this, nobody can hear you. All right, does everyone understand that? Nod your heads? All right, very good. All right. I'm going to be sitting in the audience. I might even ask a couple questions. Oh, by the way, my name is Richard Tripp. Ernie Benway is going to be handling the mic in the audience.
Ernie who?
Ernie St. Pierre.
Let's just use code names.
Like I said, Mark Connors is going to be the moderator tonight, and I'm going to let him read the rules to you so you know what the rules are. As we said in our rules, the VFW does reserve the right to remove unruly participants. So you have to be nice to them, right? So with that, I'm gonna. I forgot. This event is co-sponsored by the VFW and the Taylor Library, right? The Taylor Ray is going to be timing people, so I'll let Mark read the rules. All right. So thank you very much.
Yes, Richard also just reminded me if everyone can silence their cell phones, that would be appreciated. So I don't know exactly how I got stuck up here tonight, but don't miss a meeting. And close to check that comment about getting lost out was for you. So anyway, thanks for coming tonight. Richard, as he said, has been doing this for a number of years and reached out to ask me to do this. And then they were supposed to have somebody from the League of Women Voters actually come down and be more official. But they got worried about the snow because I guess they're up in Sunapee, so somehow I ended up back up here. So bear with me. This is my first time doing this. The event tonight, we're going to start off with a 2-minute segment of the candidates each giving a little speech and talking a little bit about their platform. And then we're going to move into the second portion, which is questions from you. So I hope all of you came prepared with questions. We do ask that you keep the questions brief. I think part of the reason they asked me to do this is because of some of the other forums I started out with a long speech and finally got around to my questions. So they figured if they put me up here, I couldn't do that. So keep the questions brief to the point, and then these guys are going to have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. We will hold up green, yellow, and red. So you have 30 seconds when the yellow goes up to wrap up, and then red, we're going to bring the big hook out to pull you off stage. Let's see. So I think that's about it. As Richard said, please keep it cool. I think tonight's session should be fairly calm compared to maybe the morning at the school board, but please keep it calm and ask the questions of the candidates. So, I don't know if you guys want to flip a coin to see who goes first, or we go left to right, right to left. Or Richard, do you have some sort of process for that?
I understand that people were concerned about who was going first, so I'm going to ask you to give me a number from 1 to 10.
2, 3, 7, 5.
Randy goes first.
What was the number?
The number you wanted.
You probably should have told somebody that number first. All right, I can't sit down. I gotta get up. All right, there's a reason why I'm handsome. Have a suit all laid out, so I'm gonna so forth tonight, and I looked at it and I said, that's not me. 99% of the time you're going to see me, this is how I'm going to be. And I tonight am selling myself and what I've done in the community. Some people, it's tough. It's a tough road to ride when you're trying to do things what you think is correct. These guys, I don't think any one of them will tell you. You can 99% of the time you're not steering a path that anybody else chooses. Although you can see the distance path and you can see what's going to come of it, you're still thought of being wrong, for the short of a better term. I wish to be transparent. I wish to tell you how it goes, to sell you on the things that we wish to do, not tell you how it needs to be. I think that's a little thing that we do wrong. We don't spend enough time in the community talking to people and explaining why things need to go in the direction they do. Explaining why we've been where we've been and where we're going. Being behind the scenes, you get a little more insight on a lot of aspects, the financial aspects, the burdens, the things that can go right and the things that can go wrong for the short and long of it. That is something that is very important to being transparent to the people. It's a story, it's a book, and everyone needs to understand it, read it, and be on the same level of why it's happening. I think that's something where we've lost course in many years. When I got involved many years ago, that was one of the reasons. We were on a serious discourse. I believe the present council, these guys have done great. I can't say anything negative about these guys. They've all done pretty good, for the most part. The things that I would say are meaningless because, once again, until you're behind the scenes and you don't see those things, like I said, I need to see the things behind the scenes to understand. Thank you.
Okay, Richard, are we pulling another number, or are we just letting them go? Okay. Why don't we go with Charlie in the middle?
No, what we've done in the past is we just rotate.
Okay.
So,
All right, so
Jim would go next and then.
you're up. Sounds good.
So,
You just gotta make sure that Richard has the game plan up. That's why he reads all the motions at the council table. Are we good? Hi, my name is Jim Morgan. I'm the Derry Town Council at Large. I'm currently your chairman. In 2015, we witnessed this town ripped apart by a council who thought it was a good idea to cut 25% of the municipal budget. For the last 3 years, 7 councilors, including myself, have worked very diligently to restore morale to our town employees, to settle union contracts that were grossly mishandled and mismanaged, to hire a town manager that sticks, and to bring economic development to Derry. All of those things and all of those facets are very complex, and they're very difficult to do in a municipality. Working for a government and owning a business, it's night and day. Everything in the government moves slower, and you have to have patience, and you have to have consistency, and you have to have demeanor, and you have to have decorum, and you have to have an understanding of a $47 million budget. You have to know that when you bond something over a period of time, what the interest rates are. You need to be able to tell whether you should bond it or you should lease it, whether you should do many different things within a budget in order to make it equal. You need to be able to move money around. You need to understand that by moving money around, you can do different things. One of the things that this council has been very successful with is getting more for the same amount, or in some cases for less. When we took over in 2016, this council honored the previous council's desire to have a 1 cent increase. We did that. We then, the next year, had an increase that was half of the tax cap. We could have gone up a lot higher, but we didn't because we responsibly spent. We hired people when we could afford to hire people. Today, our fire department is fully funded with the exception of 1 person, whereas 3 years ago, it had 7 vacancies. The police department is fully funded, and we're having difficulty in the state hiring people. Consistency is what is going to move Derry forward. Consistency in leadership, and that's a tough road right now. So we ask that you get out and vote and support the councilors for re-election. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Ryan Chiricello, you're up next.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Chiricello, the incumbent in District 4 Town Council. Just a little background about myself. I grew up in Salem, moved to Derry in 1985, so I've been here for 33 years. Served as a town councilor in District 4 from 2004 for 9 years there. Took a little break, and that's when 2015 hit. And I think everybody in this room knows what happened at that point in time. There were a lot of angry people, and there was a few people that felt that they weren't being listened to. So a group of people got together and took some action, and I was happy to see that the community came together and did the right thing. Because the councils at that time in 2015 really didn't know what they were doing. They didn't have any experience. And that's an important thing in this town. Having experience is good because you know the ins and outs. So I think it's important moving forward. There's a lot of great things happening right now in the town. The last 3 years have been great, serving with a great group of people. I was happy to do that, and I saw a lot of progress and see a lot of progress coming on the corner that's really good for the community. So I hope you consider me in District 4 on March 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And Charles or Charlie Foot? I know you like Charlie.
Charlie.
You gotta change that name tag.
Good evening. Thank you for all coming here. My name is Charlie Foot. I'm the incumbent in District 2. So kind of reiterate what's been mentioned up here already. So 2015, I was just a everyday family guy sitting home with my kids and saw a lot that was going on, a lot of turmoil in the town. Decided that I was going to say something about it and get involved. I feel as though at the time I wasn't being heard, and one thing led to another, and I decided to run a campaign and run for District 2. I won that. And my platform back then is still the same today. I'm not a politician. I have no political background other than the 3 years I've just spent here on the council, which have been a very educational 3 years for me. I've enjoyed it. I've learned a lot, and I would like to take that on to the next 3 years, and I appreciate everyone's support moving forward. Something Mr. Kelly said, something about being in the community, being immersed. I'm one of those people who's been immersed in the community. I've been here for over 20 years. I have my wife. We have 5 children home. We're involved in the schools. I've been a coach in pretty much all the levels of different sports in town, from grasshopper to softball to t-ball, football, you name it. I've been involved in all that. Basketball. I was the PTA president at East Derry Elementary School a few years back. Got involved there. So I've taught my children to get involved and be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem. If you got something to say, go out and try to make yourself better, try to make things around you better. And I think in the last 3 years I've done that, come to the council. My view back then and my pledge to the people back then was, I'm going to sit here and listen to, if there's 2 sides of the story, I'm going to hear both sides of the story. I don't have any preconceived notion or view one way or the other. And moving on to tonight and beyond, I continue to have that same view, and I vow that still. We all have our strengths and weaknesses up here. We all have different backgrounds. My background, I'm more of a pragmatic viewpoint person. I look at things realistically, and I like to be there for the people and hear what people have to say, and I'm the constituents representative. So, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Okay, so as we move into the second part of the event here, this is going to be for everyone to ask questions. One of the things that I think Richard started a couple years ago in order to make this not become what it could be, is that what you'll be doing is when you ask a question, every one of the candidates is going to have a chance to respond to that question. So we're not asking questions of one candidate, pointed questions, that sort of thing. So when you ask your question, just realize that each of them will have 2 minutes to respond to that. Candidates try and remember the question, but also be prepared to repeat it to them if they forget. So we've seen that happen a couple of times. So again, they will have 2 minutes to respond. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll bring you the microphone. All right. Again, you are going to be on TV. Derry Community Television is filming this. So as Richard said, put the mic up to your mouth so that everybody at home can hear you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for running. Representative John Patusik from Derry.
Thank you. Both of you all.
Thank you. Okay. Representative John Patusik from Derry. Thank you, gentlemen, for running. My question to you is, what is your vision for downtown Derry? Thank you.
Where do you want to go for?
Put it the same order?
Same order, yes. And then we'll rotate by one for the second question. So.
That's actually a great question, being that's the district I would love to represent. I have great vision for downtown Derry. Actually, I've talked about this for many years. I would like to see a revitalization for downtown Derry. I thought the downtown meeting we had a few weeks ago was awesome. There was a lot of input. There could be a lot more input. I envision a downtown where it's walkable, a lot more parking, a bypass road maybe coming down around us, giving us a downtown where we could have numerous events where we could actually block the downtown off, which is something we can't do at the present moment, which kind of limits us to our abilities to what we can and cannot do down there. I think it has a lot of possibilities. I thought that for many years. I don't think we need more parking for the rail trail. I sat one day just to get a curiosity and see how many people were using it, and it's actually extraordinary how many people on a nice day go in and out of the trail and park there. The parking actually gets stacked up over at Sabatino's. So we actually need more parking because people are not aware of, and they really don't want to climb up over the hill coming down up out of Abbott Court. Because I've actually asked people, how come we don't park down there? I don't, you know, that's the explanation I get, which I understand. We could do so much more, and I think once again, it's going to base us around making the downtown more usable, for the lack of a better term. I think parking is one of the biggest aspects. Whether that becomes a parking garage or we determine that there's a different style parking. Manchester many years ago went to the inverted parking, which is working out fantastic from them. I hear that more than anything else. Anybody with a handicap, any person, my girlfriend as a matter of fact, I would never ask her to walk up out of Abbott Court to say frequent Halligan's. It's just my personal opinion. So those are some of the things I think need to be addressed to make it a more viable place. Once we do address those, I think we have the jewel that a lot of towns don't have to work off of. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, John. So it really isn't my vision, right? It's a community, and the community seeks input. The council seeks input from the community, and then the council's responsibility is to implement and execute on that vision and on what the community wants to have in the downtown. Right now, currently, there are 5 projects being worked on. Most of those are non-public, but there's a vision where we can encompass a utilization of space, the limited space that we have, and density. So one of the things that makes the downtown vibrant is people. And right now, the housing that's available in the downtown really doesn't conform with today's desire. Today's desire is studio to 1 bedroom, affordable for kids that are between the ages of 25 and 40. They're the ones that are going to spend money. And we need to increase our density in the downtown while also taking care of the blight in the downtown. So, unfortunately, a municipality moves like the Titanic. It's slow. And those progresses aren't going to happen overnight. I don't think there's a single candidate or a single councilor that can sit here and say, I can solve the problem in the downtown immediately. But what we can do is we can do public-private partnerships, which is what Concord did, it's what Portsmouth did, it's what Manchester did, and it's what Nashua did, where the town becomes involved and a part of the process of economic development. It's not an impact to the tax rate whatsoever, and I would never propose to do anything in the downtown that would affect our tax rate or exceed our tax cap limitations. But those types of things where the town is involved with the people that are there, how we address absentee landlords, how we address absentee realtors who are not taking care of their properties. Those are all part of the responsibility of the town government to take care of. So fixing the downtown or revitalizing the downtown is a process, and that process is probably going to be about a decade. But this council has always been committed to that and making that happen.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, vision of the downtown. One of the great things about the downtown, which I enjoy, I live a block away from the downtown. And what I enjoy most is I can get on my bike without having to put it in my car and get right onto the bike path. And I can travel for miles, which I love. I also, when I need to do some walking exercise, that's where I'm going. I'm walking in the downtown. So it's always good to see the new stores that come in and the coffee shops that are busy and whatnot. So I like the little mom and pop stores, which are great. And I think more and more people are utilizing that downtown. One of the things that we really need to do is redevelop portions of the downtown. So Jim had mentioned there's a lot of things we can't discuss because they're not public, but there's a lot of things in the works that I think people will be pleasantly surprised that we're working on, and it's a plus. You know, we mentioned the younger generation, they don't want these big mansions on three acres anymore. They want to be part of connected to the town. They want walkability. They want to be in the downtown. They want to go to the restaurant. So we're starting to see that come back. So it's important for us to kind of focus on that as a town. I know that the town of Derry, we've spent a lot of money in the downtown in the past. You know, we put the new town hall down there. You've got the courthouse. So we've invested quite a bit down there in the past, and I think there's going to be some tools that we use going forward, such as the TIF district, that will help us redevelop without affecting the tax rate and the taxpayers. So a lot of good things there. I'm excited to live in the downtown. So, and I'm excited to see the future come sooner than later.
Charlie?
Is it on? Yeah. So thanks for the question, John. So my vision of the downtown, not to sound like a parrot, but essentially what Council Morgan and Councilor Churchill have said, as a council, we've acknowledged and appreciate the fact that the downtown is a crucial part of this town. We're fortunate to be one of those towns that has an actual downtown. Not many towns here in New Hampshire can say that they have a great place to go down and to have the mom and pop stores and the sidewalks to walk around, to have everything at your disposal right down in the downtown. You know, this past year we put up lights. That was a big that we wanted to do with the Christmas lights, holiday lights, and it looks beautiful. When it was up there, people were, you know, ecstatic. A lot of people didn't realize how dismal it looked in the holiday season until those lights went up. So that was through input from some of the citizens. So, like Council Morgan said, up here we're just one member of the team. This is a whole community viewpoint. So it's what you people want is what we need to do to revitalize the downtown. Some things we have done is we approved the 79E, the tax incentives for businesses to reface the downtown and their businesses. That's going to make it look better, beautify it. Parking is an issue. You know, at the council, we acknowledge that. We're seeing what we can do about the parking. We've looked at the blighted properties that Council Morgan addressed. I'm on the committee that does that, and we've cleaned up quite a bit of those blighted properties. There is absentee landlords that we've reached out to and try to get that back in. So I'm reading my notes here. And the other thing that I think is important too for the downtown is supporting other activities. Andy Day has been great with having a lot of activities downtown. Derry After Dark. We jumped on board with that. We support that 100%, and anything that can take on the downtown like that. The TIF district, the Council Churchill said, there are a lot of things that we're working on behind the scenes that we can't really divulge, but it takes a long time to process. My time's up.
Great. Thank you, Charlie. So, as John did, I neglected to mention, if you would at least just, I don't think we need your address, but if you just tell us your name, and also if you're a resident or a business owner in the town, that'd be great. Or if you're from out of town, let us know too. Anybody who has the next question? You're all supposed to come prepared with questions. Elaine? Lorraine, I'm sorry. I know, I came up with.
Hi, my name is Lorraine Franca. I am a resident of Sunset Circle. I would like to know, when do you have prayer up at Shoe Corner, a house in Garner?
Okay, so Schutt's Corner, the old general store at Schutt's Corner was taken down by the owners of the property in the event to seek development of that property. I believe it is on the market for sale. Yep, and the council is not aware of any of those plans, and I don't believe that there is a current buyer for that property.
Yeah, that building's been there for a long time, right, Lorraine?
Yeah,
So- Yeah, sometimes it's kind of sad to see the old buildings go away, but that building, is getting really old and falling in. Right, right. So, like Jim had said, I think that the person that owned that decided that they were going to take that down and see if they can build something new there. And then hopefully, we don't know anything at this point in time, but hopefully we'll see something nice go in that corner.
Thank you, Lorraine, for the question. As far as planning what's going there, I don't know what's going to go there. I'm confident that the zoning board and planning board will approve something very beneficial to go there and beautify and make it better than what was there. I was glad to see it go. It was a safety risk. Yep, so it was a safety issue, that's now gone. It was an eyesore, so hopefully someone will buy it soon and do something very worthwhile.
Thank you for the question, Lorraine. I think I'll just repeat everything that was just said. Let's hope that somebody comes in and puts something very nice there, something that we all want to see there. What that can be, that can vary so much, Lorraine. But let's just hope it's something that we all really would like to see there, just because of the aspect that it had been for so many years. Thank you.
And Lorraine, just so you know, my kids, when they were like 5 and 6, they wanted to buy that property because they were going to turn it into a candy store and an ice cream place and put Rick Metz out of business over at But when they looked into the price of the building at $1.2 million, it was a little more than they had in their piggy bank. So, next question. Oh.
My name is Dawn Terrell. I live here in Derry. Charlie actually already pretty much answered this question, and my question to everybody here is, other than your current position on the town council, what else have you done recently to be involved in the community? What are you doing with students or the schools or any of the facilities around to actually immerse yourself to find out exactly what people are looking for and what they actually want?
Brian, you're going to start this one off.
Okay, so thank you very much for that question. I don't know how many people know that I'm self-employed. I'm a real estate agent, so I live and work in town. And I've been here for 33 years. I raised 2 daughters, and my schedule is pretty packed if you think about it. I'm not only in the town council, I'm a state rep as well, and that involves being up in Concord 2 days a week typically, and then I've got to do my work. But geez, I've been here 33 years. It's kind of funny when I think about it. I started as a volunteer for cable TV. And the town council at the time used to be at the old library, and I used to hook that up and send all the wires, and I'd be home at 1 o'clock in the morning, and everyone would cut out. All the old volunteers would be like, I gotta go, and I'd be the only one left, and I'm like, what's going on, And then from there, I worked my way in cable committee and chaired that for a bit, and which was valuable to me because I got to watch all of the meetings, I got to watch the town council meeting, the planning board meetings, the zoning meetings, so you really get a good feel as to what's going on. So, like I said, I've been doing that for quite a long time. I think I have a good pulse of what's going on. I think the experience that I've gotten over the years can benefit the town with the knowledge that I've got going. Just because I volunteered in all those positions. So I hope that answers your question, Don.
I'll just reiterate what I had said previously. So I've been involved, like I said, in the youth sports in town, PTA. Currently I have children in East Derry Elementary, West Running Brook, and Pinkerton, so we go to a lot of events through sports, through social activities. As a matter of fact, Friday night I was at the Snowflakes dance at the elementary school. So I get to interact with a lot of parents there, and I meet a lot of people there. And it's funny, because a lot of people will approach me at those events and have ideas, not just complaints, but people bring up their ideas, hey, what about this? Or they ask, questions they're afraid to ask somebody else or go somewhere else to find out. I'm very approachable in those aspects. Some other things I've done, so currently I'm the head coach for the softball team at West Running Brook for the girls, which should be starting very shortly. Some other things is I'm a self-employed professional dog trainer, so I train dogs, and a lot of my clients are in town. So I go around and meet people and I train their dogs, and I kind of hear the root of what's going on that we're not aware about in the town level, any rumblings or whatnot. Other things I've done is I go to a lot of the local establishments, and I'm always down at the coffee shops. I try different coffee shops. The new one, Press for Time, I just went and met him last week, very nice gentleman. So I try to get around and kind of spread my business and my patronage to all these places. Oh yeah, Rotary, thank you. Most important, Rotary Club. I'm an active member of the Derry Village Rotary. As you know, the Rotary, for those who don't know, we're very involved in the community, giving back to the community, doing charitable events, giving back, whether it be donations or building things. My Rotary, for example, had built a shed for the Boys and Girls Club a few years back, a pavilion. They built a shed for the Derry Humane Society. So they do a lot of things like that we're involved with and very proud of. And to touch real quickly, social media, I really don't engage in social media on the public side of it. I do it more on my personal side. I feel as though my time is more well spent being out in the community and being involved and talking to people face to face or on the phone or things like that. So.
With the 22,000 steps I did at Dairy Fest, would that count? I guess Dairy Fest, Salvation Army. These are the things that I think you get a great perspective of what people have to say, what they think is going on in the community. What I find, though, talking to people is a lot of misconceptions. People get misled by social media, unfortunately. It can be the greatest place or the worst place, unfortunately, as everybody knows. I guess with that said, that is where I find that I think, and I guess I should throw in a little disclaimer that Dawn, I didn't even know she was going to ask a question, just to throw that in there. I think the best place is things such as that. Knights of Columbus approached me, and I think that's a great organization to get involved in also. Things such as that are where you get to talk to the people that are affected most by the tax rate, by decisions made by this council. Numerous things can apply to that, obviously, but I appreciate you asking the question, absolutely, because it's something that I take heart in. Being right now, we're going to have to move the Salvation Army building because of the 4A project, which is kind of concerning to me, being that we just purchased the building and it took us a year and a half to decide that we were going to stay where we're at. So there's a lot of things that I guess I could touch on that, but with that said, thanks for asking the question, Don.
Don, thank you for the question. I think that part of being a counselor is the biggest joy is giving back to the community. I think that for me, the proudest thing that I accomplished in the 3 years that I've been on the council is in co-founding the Derry Veterans Assistance Fund with Ernie St. Pierre, and taking on a project that really restored the life of a human being. And I take that one step further. I'm on the board of directors of the Center for Life Management here in Derry, and because I take mental health very seriously. We have a huge mental health problem in this country, and we have mental health problems right in our community, and the best way to affect that and affect change is from within. I think that between our veterans, between our mentally handicapped people, and between all the other organizations that I donate to and or give time to, that's what makes community great. So it's not just about being a counselor and coming in twice a week and sitting there. It's about how do you reach people? How do you get the information to find out that an 80-year-old man is living in a shack in the back of his house that burned down in 2001, and that the only people that care about that are the people that own land around him? That's a problem. And it's a deep problem that we don't recognize what goes on around us within our own community. So we created an organization that can reach out to veterans who have served our country and who never asked for anything, and provide them with an avenue of help, whether it's a house or a boiler or a handicap ramp or something else. I think that that's the epitome of public service, and that, I think, makes your question so much more powerful as we sit up here as candidates, is what do we do for people? And it goes beyond just sitting at the council chamber. So I appreciate the question, and I genuinely love the fact that we can have an effect on people's lives.
Great answers. Richard in the back.
I'm Richard Tripp. One of the things that I think is lacking in the town is you talked about downtown and trying to revitalize it, because the millennials would like to live there. The only problem I have is the millennials going to have someplace to live. I mean, someplace to work. What is the town council doing to attract businesses that are not Panera Bread, not McDonald's, not Burger King, but businesses that have good paying jobs?
Thank you, Richard. And Charlie, we'll start with you on this one.
Good, very good question. Thank you, Councilor Tripp. Just had to point that out. So as a council, we can only do so much individually. This is a team effort, like we talked about, like I mentioned earlier. I think the important thing is having good people involved that work in the town. So, for example, we have a new economic development coordinator. We have Beverly Donovan, who's doing an amazing job. She's out there every day. I know today she was at some seminar training. She's constantly learning different avenues about marketing and whatnot. She knows about all the prospective properties in town, about redevelopment and development. So we need to rely on our employees who get paid to do that for their job. They know more about that than I do. So Bev is a great asset. We just, previously to her, we had Ann, and Ann did a phenomenal job as well. And they reached out to a lot of marketing places. We had Buxton, which we did have for a little bit. And nothing really yielded from that. But I think as a town, as a business owner, whether it be little or big, you want to have someone responsible and someone you can look to when you come in to bring your business into town. And I think having, like with the planning, George Chioris and Elizabeth Robidoux and Bob Mack and Bob Wentworth, all those inspectors and the people involved in the planning department, having an open door and something that is tangible for people that want to talk to and get information about what do I need to do to bring my business into town? What can you do to help me? So I think giving that advice to them, to these new prospective businesses coming into town, is going to help bring in bigger business. Ray's giving me the dirty eye here again. So again, I think essentially comes down to marketing and relying on our employees who get paid to do that for their job. I mean, they're the experts in it, not us.
I'll make the comment that you've never been up here. That's not fair. I have this on the back of my business card. Progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. I truly believe that. Insight, innovation, Charlie spoke on a big thing, marketing. I've been talking about marketing since the day I got involved in this town. Why? We need to market this town. We need a brand. We need an image. And I know we're all things we've been working on, but not things that we've kind of found the niche for yet. We're working on it. We have a lot of good people and a lot of people with a lot of insight and the innovation who are putting their 2 cents in and giving us a lot of great ideas. Will we find it? I don't know. I'm hoping so. All we can do is be positive. We definitely have the foundation to do so. We just got to put the roots in place to grow an oak tree, not a pine tree, so that way when things get rough, it doesn't blow over. Thank you.
Before we do any economic development, we gotta upgrade this 1970 microphone. So, let's talk about what we have done. Liquid Blue came to Derry with 120 new employees. We have redeveloped and now have, not redeveloped, excuse me, we have successfully leased out every single building on A Street. Tupelo was the domino that fell, and they just kept adding and leasing and renting and moving. Derry is gaining ground on employment. On Crystal Avenue, across from St. Thomas, we have a new development going in with a new spa, a new urgent care center, and potentially a bank. So you're going to see development happen all over town. What creates that, though? So when a prospective business comes to town, where do they go? They go to the town manager first, and they go to the planning director first. And then they look on TV and they see, how does the council govern? Up until 2015, do you think that if you were a CEO of a $50 million company in Connecticut and you wanted to move your operation to Derry and you saw what you saw on TV in 2015, that you'd want to come to this community? Most likely not. But when I sit across the table from a prospective developer who wants to come to town or a prospective CEO that wants to move his business here, we can talk and have an articulate conversation. We can talk about the benefits of your gross margin by employing the people of Derry. We can talk about the benefits of the community and the walkability of the downtown and the walkability of our areas. One of the most important things in order to expand commercial development in town is land. The biggest section of land, which sits on Manchester Road, that's 10 acres, is contaminated. It was contaminated by a manufacturer. We need to get that cleaned up and we need to develop it. Water going down 28 to Ryan's Hill is a big deal for this town. That's going to happen now. So that whole corridor will get developed. There are things in process that are going to make it easier for Derry to attract those larger type employees, employers.
Okay, Jim stole most of my thunder, but, I mean, Liquid Blue coming
I
up.
usually do.
What he said is
We're gonna start with me first, I think, next time. So Liquid Blue came out of Rhode Island. They saw an opportunity in Derry. They had a few different options, and they liked our community and said, you know, this is a place where we can lay roots and bring some jobs. So that's one. Right on Ash Street extension, there's a state-of-the-art, I forget the name of the place. It's all robotic. It does picking different products and whatnot. That's high tech. Those are probably high-paying jobs right there. Tupelo is great. Londonderry didn't want them to leave. They kept saying, "Oh, stay in Londonderry," and Scott said, "No thanks. We're going to go to Derry," which was great. As Jim mentioned, A Street is now completely filled out. All the buildings are purchased the last couple of vacant buildings, that some of those buildings were vacant for quite a while. One of the other things that I'm kind of really proud of that I actually got to see happen while sitting on the planning board and the council is Shenandoah Road. I mean, if you think of Derry Medical and the buildings that were all put on that road, and we zoned that specifically for those high-end buildings, and those are really good, high-paying medical jobs. So, you know, you just have to open your eyes and take a look. We've done some good things. There's more good things to happen.
Next question. I want you to come to at least one. Jenna?
Hi, Jenna Paradise. So I have a question regarding social media. As somebody stated earlier before, one of the biggest things is to have decorum when you are a public representative. That includes language, it includes acting like adults, it includes interfacing with the people on social media. It's kind of a necessary evil at this point in time. Things such as bringing Derry together or just Facebook in general are the way that most people are communicating, even in times that, as you can see, we don't have much of a turnout here, but there are 23 people watching at home right now, and eventually it will be discussed on social media. Places like Bringing Derry Together has 14,000 members. What do you see as the impact of social media and how you should carry yourself on social media, and whether you have a public persona versus a town councilor persona?
Okay, so Randall, I think you're leaving this one off, buddy.
Imagine that.
So,
What I can say about that, as we all know, I can be abrasive, but show me one post where I was ever vulgar. I use pumpkin, pudding pop. I've never swore. Show me one. I'd be glad to see them all, because I don't. I do it intentionally. I might poke, but that's my own personal. It's got nothing to do with the town. When I become a town representative, that's a whole different ballgame, because I'm not going to speak my opinion in an abrasive manner because it reflects to the town. That's just obvious. I know your question was directed directly at me, and the rest of everybody else can answer it.
Not entirely. No.
let's not have crosstalk, folks, just answer the
I
question.
understand. All I have to say is that I never personally attack anybody. I never personally go after anybody, and once again, in a vulgar manner. The terms I use are, once again, by no means vulgar. So I have no problem with receiving any of that. Derry is great at Gmail. Any of them that you find, I'd love to read them. And I'd love to discuss it all with you. Thank you.
What a novel idea of adults being adults. Social media, very interesting, because the reality is that people between the ages of 12 and 30 understand how to communicate on social media because they grew up with it. However, the people that are 30 to 80 have no idea what they're doing, including myself. I will fully admit that I have posted some things online that I looked at 24 hours later and shook my head and deleted them. Because we all get wrapped up in the emotion, and that's one of the problems that we as humans have a difficult time dealing with, is we see something, we react to it. And what I've learned over the years is to see it, take a pause, and then react to it. Sometimes that doesn't work either. The overall question in relationship to social media is, I think social media plays a very valuable insight into the psyche of the person that you're dealing with. And I think that it allows you to open up to understand whether that person has compassion, whether that person has understanding, whether that person's particular angry moment has been satisfied, and they take pause to what they did, and then they react a little more passively and a little more respectfully and a little more understanding of what they're communicating. But social media plays a very important role in today's society because everybody is using it. I don't particularly agree with the President of the United States Twitter, and I'll say that right out, I don't think that's a useful tool for somebody who carries that particular position. And as a Republican, I'll say that. But the problem with social media is, I think we're all still trying to figure this out. I mean, when you look at the history of this, it hasn't been around very long. And I think there should be rules and decorum when that happens. And as somebody who has gone on the edge of those rules and those decorums, I'd be open to that. But I think to answer your question specifically, I think when you're a town councilor, I think you need to carry yourself as a town councilor.
Okay, so on social media, I have some knowledge of that. Some old timers may remember back in the old days, I actually had a blog. And I used to allow anonymous comments. And I thought it would be nice because it was, you know, freedom of speech. People could chime in and say what they want to. And I can tell you, it was very popular at the time. People looked at it and they commented. But in some cases, it started getting out of hand, and I could see where it got out of hand because they figured it was anonymous and they could say whatever they wanted to. And you know, it got to a point where it was just a lot of work to maintain and whatnot. So I learned some valuable lessons back then. So I try to, in social media, I try to, you know, have a certain decorum that, you know, knowing that I'm a state rep, I'm my own person, I'm a town councilor, so, you know, people are looking at that, and it's a fine line. Sometimes I want to make a comment as a regular person, but, you know, how do you do that? You know, someone may say, well, that's you know, Councilor Churchill making that comment. So it's a fine line. You've got to be very, very careful when you make the comment. So I think, you know, what I've learned is that you need to take some time before you hit the go button. But it's very interesting where social media has brought us, because like Facebook is unbelievable. And it's actually habit forming too for a lot of people. So.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Paradise. So I think I touched on it earlier. I don't actively engage in a lot of social media. I have my own personal social media pages that I utilize. I do have one for my candidacy that I need to get up and running. As far as some of these other community pages, I was on them originally, and then to be honest with you, it kind of just started going down a road that just wasn't interesting to me, as far as all the infighting and the I guess people putting each other down, things like that. Just wasn't what I was going to spend my time on. I'd much rather be out going to a coffee shop, sitting there for an hour, talking to people coming in and out, getting their perspective, or having a face-to-face with somebody, going to a Salvation Army event or Derry Fest. Or again, I have 5 kids, 4 of them are girls. I have 4 daughters at home who's Instagram, Snapchat, and all that. So my social media time is trying to supervise them on their social media. And you know, I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. I mean, I'm a very open person, an open book. I'm very approachable, so I tell people if you have questions, reach out to me. My phone is on 24 hours. You can call, text. We have email. You can call the town if you can't get in touch with me. So although social media is important, I just choose not to go down that avenue and get involved in a lot of the things on social media. Reason being is it's two-dimensional. I think Councilor Morgan says that a lot, right? It's a two-dimensional thing. Things can be taken out of context very easily, and I just don't have the desire to engage in that. You know, having said that, what's the best place to get Chinese food around here?
Okay, I think Ernie St. Pierre has a question, so we're going to let he already owns the mic, so we'll let him know.
Ernie St. Pierre, Sunset Ave here in Derry. As Jim alluded to a little bit earlier, I'm involved in the Derry Veterans Assistance Fund, and also have been in contact with CHS. And my question to all of you up here is, you all know we have a soup kitchen in town. You know how many meals the soup kitchen serves on a daily basis, and how many people utilize that place?
Well, I know that last Monday night they served like, I think it was 19 meals, because my husband volunteers there and cooks. And the number of people that run through that place on a regular basis is astronomical when you think about the fact that they're hungry and starving. And it's one place that I turn to for not only, it's one place that I believe that every citizen in town should donate to. Whether it's $5 or $500, it doesn't matter, because the reality is, think about going hungry for one day. And the more, going back to someone else's question earlier about community service and about community, you can provide community service by donating to the soup kitchen. And they would appreciate that. So I think it's a vital asset to our community. I think that we don't realize as citizens running through our days and taking care of kids and getting them to school and getting to work and paying bills, we don't realize the number of people that actually do need. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very focused on CLM and the Derry Veterans Assistance Fund and some of the other places, because they're all intertwined, they're all connected. CHS knows every single organization in town. They can turn to the Derry Veterans Assistance Fund, they can turn to all these other organizations, they turn to the churches are all connected. And people need to understand that that's a big part of community. And if you're looking to, and you don't have time because you have to work, several jobs or you have issues, you should understand that giving $5 a month to the soup kitchen is a big deal. So I think it's an important asset in our community.
Not exactly sure what the question was. Wasn't paying attention, but.
When I ask the question, you don't pay attention.
I'm sorry.
Number of meals.
I couldn't hear you there, but. So the soup kitchen, I have donated to them in the past. I have yet to go down and actually volunteer in person, but I have given them some checks, which I'm happy to do.
Do you know what their need is?
Yes.
No, do you know how many people they serve? Do you know what their need is?
Yeah, it's quite a lot, because I see it, because I live right down the road. When I was younger and starting my family, I was living paycheck to paycheck. And I can always remember that. And the economy wasn't the greatest, and I was working 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. I had 2 young daughters, so I know what it means to, if you miss a check or you're going hungry and stuff like that. I get that. So I think we need to do more in the community to help these people out. Jim mentioned CHS, which I think they've got the resources to really help people and talk to them and see what kind of things they need, whether it be heating oil for their home or different issues that they can help out with.
Thank you for the question. So the soup kitchen does a phenomenal job here in town. Hate to say it, but even if they serve one person, that's too many. As I mentioned earlier, I'm involved in the Derry Village Rotary, and we do a lot of fundraising. We give back to and Soup Kitchen is one of our organizations that we support. We just had a spaghetti dinner at Pinkerton last week, where it was a free spaghetti dinner put on by the Rotary, but we asked that people bring non-perishable items for us to give back to the Soup Kitchen. And I'm also involved with Troop 98, the Boy Scouts here in town, and we also do a lot of things for the Soup Kitchen. We do scouting for food. It's unfortunately it's not enough, but it's something. And I think as a community, more people should get involved and make those donations. This past year, when we did scouting for food, we didn't have a lot of response to that. A lot of people, I don't know if they just weren't interested, they forgot or whatnot, but when we do these events, it's giving back to our neighbors. You don't know who needs help from the Soup Kitchen. It could be your next door neighbor, like Brian alluded to. It could be paycheck to paycheck. Someone could have some kind of an accident or injury, lose a job, or have a foreclosure or divorce or some kind of medical situation in the family. We as a community here in Derry are fortunate that we do have the Soup Kitchen and the new facility, and they've done a phenomenal job there. So I don't have the exact stats to answer to your question, Mr. St. Pierre. However, again, I think one is too many, and so if those out there watching and listening, if you can donate if you can't offer your time, at least make a donation.
I'll say this, that we at Salvation Army actually started a food pantry because there was such an expansive need. The young ladies had started a clothes pantry, and when everybody was coming in, they were asking, do you know where I could get some food, or, you know, and so now every Tuesday if you drive by and you see the cars lined up outside, it's because that's what they're doing. It's amazing the amount of people that are in need in this town. When I got involved in the Salvation Army 3 years ago, I didn't realize. I really didn't. I mean, you know, being an addict years ago, I got to see that aspect, and I didn't realize, honestly, the depth of it. Now that I get to associate with those people and talk to them all the time, you get to see there's a greater need than we really contribute for. I don't know the exact number, but I have volunteered over there for dinner, and there's a lot of people that come in and out. And it's all the same people. It's the same folks that I see over at the Salvation Army, or we see at other dinners. When we do the parish, I'll give you an example of here's a need. Once a month, we do a dinner up at the First Parish, and we've served up to 180 people at that dinner. I mean, that's a lot of people. On average, normally the dinner, we do 100 to 120 people. And that's once a month, that's one location. That just shows the need that's out there. I think we should do more, Ernie. I really do. It's something that's close to my heart. I talk about it all the time. That's why I say submerging yourself in the community is where you get the aspect of what's going on and the insight of what needs to be done. Thanks.
So just before we go a little bit further, the question a minute ago about social media, and since we are streaming live actually online, I believe on the Bringing the Derry Together website, one of the things we're going to try is if people at home watching on cable or on the Facebook Live would like to post questions to that Facebook Live. If we run out of questions in the room, we'll use them, but obviously the people that have come out tonight will get first dibs in using up the time. So if anyone wishes to post a question, feel free, and if we have time, we'll get to them. I think there was a question over here. Yes.
Hi, I'm Jillian Field, One Summit Ave. I've been a resident my entire life since I came home from the hospital to Derry, and I've watched Derry change and grow as I grew up, and I moved back here shortly after a blip of 4 years of college to settle here, to buy a home here, and now married and raising my family here. We've talked a lot about downtown, the rail trail, all the things that I think make Derry so wonderful. What is something that hasn't been addressed tonight that you think is a wonderful selling point of Derry that we don't necessarily bring up enough or market enough or let the world know makes Derry great?
I think it's going down to Brian again to start.
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. So I had mentioned earlier that I'm a real estate agent, and I'm watching how home prices keep going up and up and up. And it's getting harder and harder for people to actually afford homes, you know. And we all hear that the state of New Hampshire is the second oldest state in the country, and we don't have enough people to, you know, get jobs, and we're looking for new people. But how do you find new people, and how do you get the younger generation to come into the state if you can't find housing? So I see that is an issue. And what I see is there's a lot of old thinking in town, and it's not a problem that, you know, it's not anyone's fault or anything, but I think we equate building new homes as we're gonna build new homes, and then they're gonna have 2-3 kids, and we're gonna put those kids in the schools, and the school is gonna cost the schools money. And so not only Derry, but all the other communities are really kind of afraid of this issue. They just don't want housing because we can't put those kids in school. It costs $15,000 per child, and we can't afford that because taxes will go up. That thinking is old thinking. Because right now there's not a lot of people having children right now. So I think that's one issue that we should address, affordability, because if people can't afford a home, they've got to rent. And to be honest with you, I've heard some of the rents in Derry are like $1,400 at the fairways, and I'm like, for a 2-bedroom, 900 square foot space, that's a lot of money. You know, how do these young families make it? It's tougher, and it's getting tougher. So I think we should try to address that as not only a town, but a state.
Great question, thank you. So here in Derry, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of things. We have the conservation land. A lot of people aren't familiar with the conservation we have. See Council will be over there working at that. So we're fortunate. He goes a lot of hiking, right? He goes Coles Marsh. We have the Weber State Forest. We have all these other lands, the Shepherd property. So here in town, there's a lot of green space for people to go. You can go camping in there if you get a permit. You can, Boy Scouts have gone in there camping. You can do a lot of hiking. You can do bike riding, pretty much anything. We have the Derry Rail Trail. We have the Rockingham State Trail. People ride the jet skis. They're 4-wheelers. Yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? That'd be something. Well, there is a couple ponds in there, so but they use their snowmobiles. They use their 4-wheelers. I've seen horseback riding on the Rockingham Trail that we have. And a lot of people aren't familiar with that. They're familiar with the rail trail. But on this side of town, there's those great opportunities to go hiking in there. Some other things we have the Derry Arts program. A lot of people come to the arts. Mike Jenner and crew do a great job over there. I think last I heard they sell it 200 something nights, a little more than like 200 plus shows a year that they're sold out. So we have that. So a lot of people come into town to patronage that. We have Humphrey Park, the splash pad. We have a lot of land up there. People from all over come to use the splash pad. That could be a hot topic at times. People don't like that. However, but a lot of those people come in, they use other places in town. They go to the businesses. They go to the small town. They get lunch. They might get dinner. They might go to the mom and pop stores and buy things. So we have a lot here to offer that we're very fortunate to have.
I say this, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, because we kind of have them all under different titles. And we don't sell it we have so many, I guess there's not one aspect. We have a vast majority of them that can be put into one bucket. When we're talking about marketing earlier, it's that brand. We need to find a brand that encompasses them all. And I know that's not easy to do, and I agree with you. But how do you do so? By putting a great group of people like we're already trying to do together and try to make that brand and sell the whole town as one thing, because I don't think we really have one single thing that stands out. We just have a whole lot of good stuff. Safety. We're a very safe, family-oriented town. 10, 11 o'clock at night, you can walk downtown, you can walk pretty much anywhere, for the most part. But Jim said, we're working on those blight areas. So to, I guess, answer your question, let's just market the whole town, because we have so many good aspects that could be done so. Thank you.
I'm just making sure the clock.
Oh, no, the clock's good.
Clock guy's good.
Wants to spoil 2 minutes.
What an excellent question. And the reason it's really good is because you can look at that in 2 different ways. You can look at a broad spectrum and say that, the community is great. You lived here most of your life. So for me, the vision is what we already have, and that's in Pinkerton Academy. We have one of the best high schools in the state. We have one of the most revered high schools in the state. We need an education product in Derry that is second to none. We need a school district that focuses on not what's necessarily good for the union, but what's good for the students. And improving education, improving our ranking, improving our standing. Because you can elect superstars as counselors, and they can try to go out and bring in as much economic development as they can. But when that parent sits down and says, do I want to go to Londonderry? Do I want to go to Derry? Do I want to go to Salem? And our schools don't match up, that's a huge problem for getting people to come here. It affects our property values, it affects our desirability, it affects the whole community. As a counselor, it's no secret. I've been extremely critical of the school district. I've been extremely critical of the standing that we have, because I believe in this community and I believe that we can do better. I believe we need to do better. And I believe that the status quo that's been in place for the last 2 decades isn't working. And we need new voices on that board. We need new people on that board, and we need them to be engaged in what will make Derry the greatest city in the country, and that's education.
Okay, and again, just before we go on, it was pointed out to me that not everybody is on Bringing Derry Together, so if you're on Derry, New Hampshire Schools Facebook page, you can post a question there as well. And for anybody who doesn't have either of those, if you'd like to text me, 978-852-4390, I will take the text on my phone. So I want to make sure everybody has a chance. I'm changing my number after tomorrow night. Next question, yes, Tina.
No, I don't. Tina Guilford, Westgate Road, Derry. The town is undergoing a master plan, and we have a problem in this town called apathy. We have voters that don't show up in March. Our vote totals are pretty horrendous. People don't show up for these things. So it's up to our council to lead. So what do you see in Derry's master plan?
I think, Charlie, that goes to you first. So, master plan. How do you see in Derry's master plan?
Yeah, why don't we get comments first? So that's a loaded question. So we did have that workshop not too long ago with the master planning that we held in Pinkerton, and there wasn't many people that showed up for that. Personally, I would like to see more people come out to be part of that process. You know, 7 of us can decide. 7 of us on the council can decide what we think is good for this.
I like that.
Yeah, no, so
You're good.
we can say what we think would be good in the master plan, but honestly, we need to hear back from the people. You know, my personal opinion, it's really not relevant. Like I said earlier, I'm just one member of the team, and the team being everyone in the community. So the master plan, you know, we need to build our infrastructure. You know, the school, we need to work on the schools. We need to maintain the public safety. We need to work on rezoning and end zoning. You know, we got to stop all these apartments going in. We need to kind of plan for the future. We don't have much land space here in town to redevelop or develop. So we need to incorporate that into the master plan. There's something, I had something else I wrote down, I forget. But anyways, so for those at home and for everyone here, please respond to those master plan questionnaires, or if you come to those workshops, I think we're going to have quite a few more. When's the next one? So it'll be in the spring, and there'll be some in the summer, and we're going to put this out there. So we need to work on the infrastructure is the primary answer.
It's funny you asked that, because when me and Jim sat down here, the conversation we had was how people are not involved in town. We talked about how the turnout's horrible, how there's 2-3 people sitting at council meetings, and there is no reason that there shouldn't be 15. One of the things I said about I say this about social media and modern technology, is it makes people lazy. And why I say that is, you don't have to show up at a meeting anymore. You can sit at home and watch it, which I'm guilty of these days myself, unfortunately. But the master plan, everything we spoke of here, there has to be so much insight and innovation, and you know what it takes? All these ideas, everybody, even if you think your idea is absolutely off the wall, never be applied in a million years, send somebody an email and tell them it, because you might be surprised. It's usually those ideas, they may not be applied in the exact context that you sent the email or how you would like it to be, but they can always be derived in different fashions. Once again, insight from others is priceless in my opinion. Thank you.
Apathy is a problem, but let's be honest. When you go to the voter's box and you cast a vote, what's your expectation? Is your expectation that the people that you elect are going to cut a municipal budget and lay off a bunch of firefighters and close fire stations and lay off police? Or is your expectation that the people that you elect are going to lead? And the people that you elect are going to make the right decisions for the community because they listen with the 2 ears that God gave them, and they speak with the one mouth a lot less than they listen. So I think that apathy happens sometimes when people get what they expect. When they cast a vote and councils or school boards do their job and they do what the expectation is met, people quiet down, because guess what? They're not going to the polls they're not going to the polls for their health. They're going to the polls to make sure that they elect somebody that's going to lead and do the right thing. The master plan is a component of that. Like any business has a business plan, a town and a municipality has a master plan. And the master plan is supposed to be followed. It's supposed to lead the councils of the future because the community has set that plan in motion. And their expectation is that the folks that they elect are going to follow the plan that the people wanted. That hasn't happened in Derry in the last 10 years. In fact, if you look at the last master plan that was done in 2009, 70% of the components that were in that master plan have been done by this council in the last 3 years. That's huge. That's a problem. That's why Derry is where Derry is. That's why Londonderry is not where Derry is. Because those folks lay down a plan and they follow it. So I view the master plan, the next decade's master plan, is the key to our community's success. It is so important to be involved in this. It's so important to have input in this. And it's important to hold the feet to the fire of whatever council you folks elect to follow the plan that you have initiated. The two are symbiotic together. They're connected. If the council doesn't follow the master plan, they're not doing what the people elected them to do.
All right, so apathy. I'm someone that doesn't like apathy as well. And I want to thank my opponent, Randall, for stepping up and making that race a challenge, because that shows that people are interested. So that's a good thing. But it can also be that people are happy at the way things are going. For instance, we all saw what happened in 2015, and you couldn't even get into the council room. It was so packed because people weren't listening. People were not following the charter. And we all saw what happened then, you know, and then to have that special turnout of 6,500 people voting was like, I've never seen, the 33 years I've been here, never saw anything like it. So there's an old saying, when people feel pain, they come out. When they're happy, sometimes people are busy, we get it, you know, people have to do their own thing. They're working, they're raising a family. So sometimes, you know, apathy is one thing, but when you don't see people at the town council, to me that means people are happy. The master plan is extremely important, and the way I view it is the people that show up at the master plan control the town of Derry and control the vision. It's really not about the town council. It really shouldn't be us. That's a tool for us to use. You guys chime in on the master plan, we listen. When I mean we, the elected officials, the planning board, the zoning board. So we've kind of stressed a few times that master plan is very important. It's what you want to see. And you know what? I'm willing to bet that the people that were here 10 years ago, a lot of people moved out. There's a lot of new people in. So it's important to participate. Everyone stay focused when you hear about new meetings for the master plan, please come out and please share what your vision is of Derry.
Actually, this gentleman was waiting here, so.
Ed Hodgson, current adjutant for Post 1617, hopefully future commander. Couple quick questions I've had. I've heard a lot about economic development for the Derry area. What are we doing for small mom and pop shops that are still in the area where the rates are starting to become too much, where they can't afford to it? Examples of Derry Express, the D'Angelo's, those kind of companies that can't afford the rates as they go up.
I think Randall, you're starting this one off.
I think you're going to find that stabilize over time. Right now, with the positive things that are happening in Derry, it's going to be a supply and demand, but I think you're going to find, once again, I think that's going to smooth out. It always happens in growth spurts. It's an inevitable thing, unfortunately. Capitalism is a wonderful thing, but it has that evil bite on occasion. This is what we're seeing. It's good for our future, just as long as it doesn't get to the point, like you said, where we're totally turning it off to anybody who can come in and have a startup business. Startup business is our America, they're the roots. I forget, I was actually just looking at something, I forget the number off the top of my head, but I was amazed by how many small businesses there were in America. Once again, we are the roots. So to change that and bring it in, I guess we're going to have to hope that with the economic development that's been spurred, that it creates other places to do so. Meaning, not just so much strip malls, but maybe that these people grow, people that are here in the lower area grow, they can move to a bigger facility, somebody else can take over their spot. For any viable option, I think that's about all we're going to have to be able to do. Because I don't see until we find our course, I guess, I don't see that stabilizing, unfortunately. There isn't much you can do about it in the market that we're presently in, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So there's actually a lot that a municipality can do to help business. One of our responsibilities is to make sure that the infrastructure for the community is in place. If you have a ratty looking downtown with broken sidewalks and no streetlights, how are businesses going to function down there? What the municipality is not responsible for is what landlords charge for rent, because that works off of how much they've invested in the property, how much they need in return for that property, and how much they need to make a mortgage payment on that property. So there's a difference between businesses coming in and coming out because of either mismanagement or just tough economic times or just not the right business for the community. We see that happen. But without the right infrastructure, which is the responsibility of the municipality, without us working with those businesses to make sure that we're providing lighting in the downtown as an example, or water and sewer up Ryan's Hill and down Route 28 to Wyndham, or doing those types of things that we do have control over, that hurts business when the town doesn't do those things. So our responsibility as councilors is to have an economic development department, which we do, which is Bev, and Bev Donovan is the economic development director. Her job is to go out in the community and figure out what the people need that the town is responsible for that we're not providing. So we're doing that. We do that on a regular basis. We're adding water is going all the way from Derry to the Wyndham line. That's going to open up a lot of different developments on all those used car lots that go down 28. Why are there used car lots along 28? Because there's no water and sewer. So it's very difficult to get businesses to move in there because the infrastructure is not there. So it's the municipality's responsibility to provide that. That's how we help businesses grow, and that's how we help attract new businesses to the community. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think one of the businesses you mentioned was the downtown, the Chinese restaurant. That's been there for quite a long time.
As long as I can remember.
Yeah, exactly. I think when I moved into town, it was there, I believe. But some of these, D'Angelo's, for instance, the parent company, there was an issue there. You know, it's not anything that we did or anything like that. I think it's just the way the parent company decided to make, you know, a move there. I think Jim hit it off as far as what we can do is we can make it attractive. We can do things to make sure it's clean so the next business comes in. I can remember, growing up in the 70s, I can remember Bradley's and Sears and what's happening with Sears. So it's a natural progression. Some of these stores will go out of business, but you'll always see new businesses come in. And I think when a business goes out, it's important for us to make sure that the next business going in has what they need as far as any help from any of the processes from the planning board. If there's a change of use in the building, we can be friendly there and make it a little bit easier for them to locate here. So that's what we can do as a town.
So I'd like to just echo what's already been said. So as far as businesses going out because they're poor management or things like that, nothing we can do as a town to help that. Or the larger corporations who are closing down smaller stores. Some of it is the landlords raising the rents astronomically or tying people into crazy leases that just aren't feasible. So I think for us having, like I mentioned earlier this evening, having a planning board who's responsive and responsible in helping these people come into town, establish a business, but also maintain it. So Bev Donovan going out and doing her job and try to really market those things. We have the Chamber of Commerce, who these businesses can team up with, and they can get some insight and help from them. The other economic development that we have planned doing in town, like the 79E tax incentive that I talked about earlier, beautifying the downtown, it's going to create better business, but it's also going to create better business as far as people doing their shopping or their going for their coffee or going for the walk or going to the arts program like I mentioned earlier. So we can do that side of it from the town side. But I think the real onus is on the people on that side who need to go out and support these businesses. Go in and buy your coffee local, go in and buy your lunch local, go to the stores, buy your flowers locally at one of the flower shows. So I think as a community, we have to look from that side and what can we as a community do to help these businesses, not just what can the town do. But the master plan, the applicant that was mentioned earlier, these people come out and dictating what the master plan is going to be for the next 10 years is important, and building that infrastructure, and that's going to help these businesses come into town and want to come into town, but also sustain it.
Sorry, okay. You'll be next here, and then Mr. Muller.
Again, it's me, but not me. I'm asking a question for Brenda McAvoy. She wanted to know...
Jenna, I'm just going to stop you though. What we said was we would use those at the end, so I want to actually let people who actually attended, if you don't mind. I think we want to let the people who came out should be able to ask questions first. So, Leah, why don't you go ahead? Sorry. That was kind of what the rule was going to be, so. Just hold on to it, sorry. When I check with Richard.
Gordon. So my question is, how much consideration will you or do you give the environment when approaching development in Derry?
And let's see, let's go to Jim.
Well, I think that consideration on the environment is first and foremost when you're looking at developments. And there's regulations in place which protect that. I mean, if you look at the bridge that they built over Route 3 from the airport, the new access bridge, the Ray Resort Drive, that took 15 years because they waited for Eagles to leave. So it's part of why municipalities move at the pace that they move at. If we just go in and ruckshot everything and tear it down, we could cause problems. That goes to one of our biggest complaints in the town of Derry is that the Shepherd Farm isn't mowed. And the reason that the Shepherd Farm isn't mowed is because there's wildlife there that is thriving in that tall grass. And we just can't go in there and mow it down because we'll hurt that wildlife. So to me as a councilor, environmental and protecting our environment within the community is extremely important. It not only goes to that, but it goes to not to development. We had a case come before us recently, which we have milfoil at Beaver Lake. It's a huge problem. The council acted immediately, and we put funding in place, and we found out that there's a community of citizens out there, there's a Beaver Lake Association that's going in there and been trained by the state to remove the milfoil. And these citizens, these residents have been donating their time to do that. So I think that if anybody says that the environment isn't important, I think that's irresponsible, because without sound environment, that's our biggest asset in there.
Right, so I think it's more important as the population grows that we've got to consider a lot of environmental issues. One of the things that I see, and I made mention earlier, was that housing. You know, we used to want these big mansions on 3 acres, and that's probably not the way that the younger generation wants that anymore. So you do like cluster development where the houses are closer in, and you're not destroying all these trees. You know, because the zoning basically says you have to have 3 acres on every house lot. That's one of the things that we can do and looked at in the past. Another thing is the on planning board, they have parking regulations. So when a new company comes in, the regulations will say you have to have X amount of parking spots for the size of the building. And then when we looked at Walmart, and when we did that in the past, we kind of rethought that and said, you know, there's a lot of pavement there, you know, is it really needed? So I think thinking those through a little bit better is a better way to go. I think as a group, we've really kind of looked at that. I know one guy in the council was really focusing on solar. So, and he's really kind of on solar, and so far, you know, things are looking good. We had the solar panels put up at the transfer station, so that's good. And you know, we talked about you know, maybe putting up, I don't know what the total wattage would be, but you know, additional solar power that would actually produce 75% of the town's usage. I'm like, you know, I'm saying to myself, that's kind of interesting, you know. That would save us a lot of money. So we're talking about these issues, and we probably need to do a little bit more, but I think moving forward we will.
Thank you for the question. So, as far as development goes, you know, I think, or businesses, for example. So, Tupelo, as many people know, he just went put a lot of solar on his roof and gonna fund a lot of electricity through that. Hopefully, these other businesses that come into town or any developers that want to build will look at that and appreciate not only the financial gain they might get from that, but also the environmental benefit that will have. Other things, you know, I think really building the downtown as far as refacing it, getting the business in there with the bike trail there, that's going to be environmentally friendly to the people. I know we have the charging stations at the town hall, which hopefully people will utilize those. We need to get a report on that, how that's going, but that's for the environment. So as far as these, you know, development coming in, that's something that Bev Donovan and the town administrator and the planning board and the zoning board, I'm not sure if there's any incentives out there or any kind of grants or programs to make it worthwhile for these companies to come in and want to develop something environmentally friendly. I'm not familiar with that, it's not my forte, but I think as a council, we can look into that and see if that's something that is doable.
3 years of zoning has given me some serious insight into that. I'll be honest, when I first got on zoning, I was totally against it. And not that I'm 100% for everything that it's about, but the ideas and the laws that have been applied to water runoff, to setbacks, those sort of things, I sure have embraced their ideas a lot more than I used to. I understand why they're implemented. I understand why you need discharge. I understand why erosion is important to take care of and make sure that it doesn't happen. It's very important, actually. As you know, I'm not as favorable on solar, but I can warm up to things. As you can see, I don't have a problem with that. Money talks, as they say. But I will go right back to, I really do. I think those things are put in place for a reason. And it's not to protect me, but it's to protect the next guy. And I think insight, once again, is a vast importance in that. Because everything we do today, as you know, affects us tomorrow. And I think we forgot about that for many years. And people complain about zoning, you know, and everybody kind of wants to be an anarchist, I guess, and have a junkyard in their yard. And I'm like, well, yeah, you do, until it affects your well, or your neighbor's well, or 6 other people's wells. So it's all for a reason. So I'm absolutely for it, and I think we should support every aspect of things that can obviously do harm to others. Thank you.
Ed Muller, you got a question? You're up next.
Thank you. Thank you. Ed Muller, Derry. Guys, I just want to say thanks for coming out tonight. You guys, sit in front of the voters and answering these tough questions. I applaud you for that. So thank you very much. My question is, there's a great vibe going on right now in Derry. There's a lot of great growth happening in Derry. People want to come to Derry now. After the 2015 fiasco, what the current town council has done has been amazing. Okay, kind of like a phoenix. So my question to you is, growth takes investment. So, but at the same time, we have a very, very limited tax base. So how do we continue this great momentum that we have without putting undue stress on the existing tax base?
I think that's you. Right, Mark, it's on your son's right there.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. And I just forgot the question. No. Well, first off, I appreciate you recognizing that this council is doing some wonderful things, and I agree with you. One of the things that we're seeing is we're seeing some more investment. Jim had mentioned earlier that Dick Agnost, who's a major developer in New Hampshire, had bought the warehouse across the street from St. Thomas, and he's going to develop that into something nice. What I was happy with is when he was at the planning board, I noticed that 2 other property abutters were sitting there wondering what he was going to do. And they were like sitting there, what's he going to do with this? He's going to put trees there, and they got all excited. And when you start to see that, you'll see people take more interest in their own property, and it kind of spreads, which is a great thing. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at TIF districts. I won't get into the detail about TIF districts, but so we've had 2 successful TIF districts in Derry. One is where Ash Street Extension is. When the Coopers came up, they were presenting that they wanted to build 250 apartments at the time, and we said, oh, we don't want that, So we did a TIF district, and we put businesses there instead, which worked out really well. And so the money from the TIF district actually, you bond that out, and the money comes in to do other new things. We also did a TIF district for the Walmart area. And so those worked out pretty well. So now we're talking about the TIF district expanding that into the downtown, which is exciting for me because we've had 2 successful times we've applied it, and it's going to spur on some more development. The other thing is Charlie mentioned a couple times 79E, which is a program. So these people will they freeze their assessed value. And as they're fixing up the building, they're paying taxes on just what they had earlier. And then in year 6, that's when they get reassessed. So the incentive is I'm not getting taxed. Great, this is an opportunity for me to actually fix this building, which is great. And then the other thing is we...
So Brian, I'm going to stop you there though, because your time's up.
If you just, okay. I'll finish up real quick, because it's really important, and I apologize, but... so we also in an enterprise zone. So we got the governor to look at a tract in Derry, which is a big tract, to apply an enterprise zone. There's only a few of those in the state, and what that does is it's sending the message out to developers that Derry's the town to invest in, and they get a tax break, and then we get the building. So I see a lot of great things happening, and I appreciate your question.
I'll let the other three run over a little bit too if they need to.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go shorter. So Brian pretty much took the thunder as far as the TIF expansion and as far as so increasing the tax basis in town. So bringing in other developments, other companies, bigger companies that can pay the taxes and offset the tax basis is going to really help us long term. You know, building, like I said earlier, building the infrastructure is going to help us long term and increase that tax basis. Another thing we just approved recently was the bonds. You know, 4A, whether you for it or against it, we were obligated to $5 million no matter which way you cut it. So bonding that and stretching that out over time and having not just people who are currently here, people who will be here over the next years to come will help lower that. That bond, for example, is going to help with the 4A payment, but it's also going to help with the redevelopment of Alexander Car Park and the recreation improvements that we like to do. So I think by doing those and fixing Alexander Car Park, for example, remodeling that or rebuilding it, doing these other programs with recreation and the other things we have planned in town with economic development, overall, that's going to bring more attractiveness to Derry. And as you said, Derry right now, we're in a really good place right now. We're not content. We need to move on and be very diligent about what we do. So making it as attractive as possible to bring these businesses in will lower that tax basis long term.
Everything that's been mentioned, obviously, is great incentives, but we have to have those in place who are going to implement them, which they are to some degree. I think what we spoke of before, and I think Jim spoke of it earlier, is the master plan is going to be a vast contributor to that also, because less tax offsetting entities see where a town would like to set its course. And if they're going to come and they're going to drop their roots here, they want to make sure this town is on the right course. If they come in and they see that they're not following the master plan, which sets all the infrastructure and sets everything for future development, sets the roots for things such as the gentleman's concern about small businesses. Once again, small business becomes a medium business, becomes a big business, and we hope they stay here when they do so. We are doing the right things to put in place. They've been in place for a while. Brian actually, to give him some credit, was part of putting the TIF district together years ago, which I still think, obviously, is a great draw for some folks. But it doesn't bring in the big tax offsetting entities, and we have very few areas to do that with. The off-record things that are happening are probably going to be a surprise to everyone also, and those are the things that I think might help incentivize the people you'd like to see come here also, or the folks stay here also. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So tax basis is a multitude of vehicles, right? You have existing tax base, which increases incrementally as the economy increases. You have tax basis increase from redevelopment of existing properties that are antiquated or old and new properties are built. You have tax basis increase from the development of new land and new lands. Unfortunately, Derry has a significant problem in that, so we don't have a lot of available land to bring in large developments, huge developments. So we have to be very selective of how we do that. The developers that we work with, the developers we're trying to attract to town, those are for focused developments. Some housing, some mixed use. One of the things that Derry doesn't have is in their zoning, we don't have a lot of mixed use zones, okay? And mixed use zones have tremendous tax advantages for developers because and what a mixed use zone is it increments retail, housing, and restaurant or commercial property for manufacturing or something like that. But it's a multi-use facility or a multi-use development. those bring 10, 15, 20 million to the tax bases. So what have we done as a town? One of the things we did was we outsourced our assessing department, and everybody in town has had some pains over the last 3 years as their assessments have increased, because the way the things were being assessed wasn't necessarily accurate. Now, I can say that after last year, I believe we are at 96% of our assessed value. We had some properties that were down in the 70s, and that's a huge problem. We had some properties that are down in the 60s, so people got huge tax increases because their property was not assessed correctly in the first place. So consistency from the town is a huge factor in that. The ability for developers to come in and increase tax bases, but also having a council that is looking at that. In other words, a council that's looking at 19 Elm Street. What are we going to do with it? Well, we took the old shoe factory, the old what was that? Fisher?
Fishercraft.
19 Elm? Fishercraft, right? We took Fishercraft building down, and we haven't done anything with it because we're waiting for the right investment that's going to put the right tax basis increase into that property, and it's going to be conducive to the area that it's in. So we have to be selective on what we do. We have to do a combination of redevelopment, new development, and enhancing what we have on the tax basis today.
Hi, Matt Levitt. I have an investment in this question. It's regarding the school district. Can you speak a little bit about the town council and the relationship with the school district, how you believe that it should be, and also speak a little bit to Pinkerton and its relationship to Derry. Jerry.
Charlie, I think you're starting off on this one.
So, historically, people would say that, you know, the town, the school, and Pinkerton, 3 separate entities, are out of touch with each other. This council that's currently sitting, we've recognized that, and we've tried to establish some kind of rapport and open dialogue with Pinkerton and with the school district. We've done so. I know we have a subcommittee. I'm not on that subcommittee, but we have a liaison now, which we didn't have before, to Pinkerton. Council Weatherby is the liaison for that. So there's been meetings with Pinkerton. We've had meetings with the school board. We've had an open workshop with the school board to try and open the dialogue and get on the same page. You know, there seems to be some kind of some divide between the town versus the school versus Pinkerton. You know, moving forward, the next 3 years, I hope that the council can continue and further dialogue. We've had a, you know, pretty open dialogue. It's been a few bumps here and there, but I think, you know, for any kind of success in this town, it's not just the town side, it's not just the school side, it's not just Pinkerton. We need a collaborative effort, and, you know, it sounds easy. People say, well, you guys just supposed to do this. It's a lot easier to say it than it is to do it. You know, I think Councilman Morgan alluded earlier, things go slow in government, and trying to have an open and honest discussion is basically where it should be at. Historically, I don't think that's been the case. So I think moving forward, as a council, the next 3 years, that needs to continue. We need to, you know, be like siblings. Might not agree, might take some lumps here and there, but we need to look at the bigger picture and realize that there's 30-something thousand people in this town that depend on a good rapport, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent.
Go back to the Salvation Army, I get a chance to, we serve a meal at a couple of the local apartment complexes over the course of the summer. And a lot of the folks from the schools, principals, vice principals and such, they commit their time and we get to talk. And I think they are as frustrated as maybe the council is. Jim got to learn, and it's nothing. I think sometimes discourse causes great relationships, believe it or not. And I think in the beginning, maybe Jim might have handled it a little rough, but I think I handle things rough in the beginning sometimes with things too. And then we look back and we go, that wasn't so bad after all when the smoke clears, because I think now the course that has been created from that is a good one. I think we're, like every one of these guys said, anything in a municipal environment works at snail's pace. And people think there's a magic wand. There's no magic wand for any of this. It's unfortunate. It's 15 emails, then 5 phone calls, and so on and so forth. So you understand the perspective of what it takes to actually make something happen. And then, never mind, let's throw in, we have numerous personalities and opinions, which always can make things very disruptive. But to Mr. Morgan's credit, I think that we are on a good path. And I think, honestly, that someone like myself, having been involved with those folks, can have that conversation and say, and find a medium for us all to make this all happen. It's unfortunate that it's been a sour taste for so long. For a few years, I was prepping homes for sale in Derry, and literally almost every single one, I'd ask the folks the folks that moved in, why did you move here? Pinkerton. Why did you move here? Pinkerton. Why did you move here? Pinkerton. So Pinkerton is something that we need to embrace. It's the sweet and sour. They cost us a lot of money, but are they one of those draws that we need to keep everybody here? Are they one of those entities that will draw in those tax offsetting commercial and industrial properties? We can only see. Thank you.
What a complex question. So, when I got elected in 2016, one of the pledges that I made was to look into the tax situation in Derry. And basically what you had the state legislature doing their own thing, the school board doing their own thing, and the town council doing their own thing. And none of it was connected at all. And coming from the town of Bedford, which it has nothing to do with demographics, has everything to do with systems, policies, procedures, and operation, okay? So take the demographics out of it, because as far as I'm concerned, Derry and Bedford are identical in the fact that you need process and protocol. So when you look at that, you had a school board that was not connected to the town council. You had a state legislature that wasn't connected to either one. No one was held accountable. No one was held to their feet to the fire to follow policy and follow procedure and do what is best interest of the community. So I worked to bring that all together. And when you also sit down and you look at past meetings in the past where the town council has tried to sit down with the school board and ends up in a shouting match and there's distrust and then there's all sorts of issues, you can't have that. Again, it goes back to decorum. But we're required as elected officials not to make decisions based upon what our husband or wife think, not to make decisions based upon what our friends think, not to make decisions that are based on our pocket and making money off of those decisions and doing anything of that. We're expected to do our job. So when I'm looking at the school district, I'm looking at the school district to do your job. Your job is to provide an outstanding education. Your job is not to go from the top 50 in the state to the bottom third. That's not your job, and that's not helping the town council do their job. On the flip side of that, the town council's job is to bring economic development and increase the tax basis, because the reality is the school district cannot survive on what they can increase year over year. They can't. We need more money. The state legislature has to do their job to make sure that they protect the money that we get from the state. We've lost $7 million in 10 years. $7 million. And not one elected official in this community said peep until 2016. That's a problem. So when you look at the global tax situation, it has to involve everybody. The council has their job, the school district has their job, and the state legislature has their job. And just to finish, Pinkerton is a vendor. Everybody tries to put Pinkerton on this pedestal. Pinkerton does their job. They provide an education for $12,700 a year. That's a great job. So we need, the three of us, legislature, town council, school board, we all need to do our job. And I think the community will be better for it.
Okay. Jim, you said a lot, Jim. A lot that I was going to think about as well. But
I usually do.
yes. So one of the interesting things is that I find interesting is there are a lot of people that don't understand that it's two entities, two government entities. The school's one entity and the town is a separate entity. And what tends to happen is at the school deliberative session, people go and vote. And personally, I think I have a problem with SB2. Because what SB2 has done is taken the people out of the process. Because what they do is they've got a budget, and if you don't vote that budget in, it's the default budget. And lo and behold, the default budget's higher. Okay? So why would I go to a deliberative session? It doesn't make sense. You just took the people out of that process. So what ends up happening is we, as a town council, because tax bills come out in December, and people open it up, you get your holidays are coming up, and then you open up your tax bill, and it's like, whoa, why did my taxes go up? And where do they go? Because they don't understand sometimes it's two separate governments all the time. They come to the town council and they complain, well, why are the taxes going up? What did you do? And it's like, well, we went up a penny, but we didn't go up significantly. And go see the schools, go talk to the schools. And then you talk to the schools and they're like, don't look at us. We passed that budget last March. So that the process I think it's more of an educational process. We have to educate more people about how it all works, okay? That's what I think. We mentioned Pinkerton. Now, I'm a real estate agent, I told you before, and Randall was right. He said people come here for Pinkerton, and they do. Here's the problem. Pinkerton's now accepting students from Candia, from Auburn, from Chester, from here. Okay, years ago it was only three sending communities. Now you've got 7 or 8. So the person that's looking to buy a home, let's say you're buying a home at $400,000, where am I going to go? Am I going to go to Derry where the taxes are high? Oh, let me go to Candia where the tax rate is lower. They want Pinkerton, and so what they'll do is they'll buy the house where the lowest tax rate is. So we've got an issue that we need to look at, and that's recently happened. So I'm concerned about that. So, but I do think, I'll wrap this up real quick. Jim started the conversation with the school district. We are talking. Sometimes it gets hot and heavy, but I think that's a good thing because we're debating all those issues and we're flushing them out. So.
So we promised we would wrap up by 8:30, but we also invited some folks from the community to respond online, and a couple have. So I do want to at least take one question, and then we'll wrap it up. I do have another one on my phone that we probably won't get to, unfortunately. So apologies to the folks at home, but thanks for participating. Jenna, you had one.
All right, I got a hot button one, so brace yourself. It's from Mark Grabowski, and it's. It says, the 2006 Town Council closed the fire station that covered my area of town. It is now Halligan's Tavern. So much of West Derry is the only area of town that exceeds the NFPA recommended 8-minute response time. As such, we are just as likely to see Londonderry or Wyndham responders first on scene as Derry responders. Yet we pay our taxes to Derry just like everyone else. Is this a problem? And if so, what would you do about it? What do you envision as the long-term plan or configuration of the Derry Fire Department and its stations?
And Mr. Grabowski covered his bases because he's also the one that messaged me too, so he wanted to make sure that question
Who's first?
This is going to Randall first.
What?
I'm sorry, you ended, so I'm sorry, Charlie. My apologies. Charlie starts it off, right? Yeah, you were the last one.
No, it's you.
Yeah, it's me. Yeah, okay.
First.
I'm all right. Okay.
All right.
I'm ready for it after the
So let's just be clear. We have 11-minute response time to West Derry. Okay. The standard AFBA is 8 minutes. So what do? Well, we have an antiquated central station that needs to be replaced. And everybody's going to hate me for saying this, but we need a new fire station. And eventually, that's going to happen. It's not going to happen next year. It's going to happen when the council can position the community not to have a huge tax increase to do it. It's going to involve economic development because we're going to try to repurpose those lands for other things. Then, we need to build a substation in the southwest part of Derry to accommodate those response times. That will also probably involve closing a station. And yes, we're going to build 2, because that's what the town is going to have to do. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but 5 to 10 years from now, that's going to be the long-range plan. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it, I'm not going to lie about it. It is what it is. We do need to solve that problem. The folks in West Derry, we lost a house last year because we couldn't get there fast enough. So it's a serious problem, and it's a problem that needs to be solved, and the town council is working on some things to solve that problem, and as soon as we have a plan in place, which requires land, we'll solve the problem, and we'll put it to the voters for them to make the decision.
I don't know how much more I can add to that. We recognize where Mark Grabowski lives, there's a little blip there for response times, but the town as a whole, I think, is in decent shape. So, you know, Jim touched on, you know, possibly moving some of the stations. I mean, if I could wipe off all the stations, hypothetically, and then redo them, you know, we could do them differently, but people have to remember, and the people that have been here for a long, long time, remember the old Derry and East Derry fire battles. So we've got a couple of buildings that are from East Derry, and we've got a couple from Derry. And so we inherited that when we combined the 2, you know. And so, you know, I think we do a decent job as a fire department right now. So if we can fix that issue in the future, then we should look at it.
Great question. You know, there's no simple answer to it. Councilor Morgan addressed most of it, but so the current council has acknowledged that's an issue. I'll mention the notorious 2015 issue. The current council, when I ran back in 2015 or 16, the reason was because of the cuts that made to the public safety. So we recognized it back then. And many people said, you know, when they closed the Hampstead Road Station, oh, it doesn't matter, we still have these other stations. Well, what people don't realize is the town is a big town, okay? So if you close one station, who's gonna cover that area? The station downtown. So the station downtown goes to the eastern part of Derry. So now you have downtown and the west part of Derry uncovered. So it's not just a West Derry issue, it's a Derry in general issue. You know, like Councilor Morgan said, we need to really sit down, think long and hard, and make some very difficult decisions, but public safety at stake. So building new stations down the road is something that has to be done to redistrict for everyone's safety. This current council has acknowledged that. We've talked about it. We've kind of, you know, we've had some insight into it. We looked into it, and that's eventually going to come back to the voters, like Jim had said. And it's definitely an issue, and there's no overnight fix to that. You know, I'm a retired firefighter by trade, and when I moved up here and I realized I'm not on that side of the town, but when I realized those people, you know, every day I said, that's horrible. It shouldn't be like that. And basically, when the voters get together in a few years, hopefully that's something we can, you know, bond or whatnot and build another station or 2 stations and make it what it should be. We have one of the best fire departments in the state, and we're fortunate, so we need to help them. It's not just a residential issue, it's also a fire department issue, that they need better response times. So for their safety as well as the resident safety.
It's funny, 7 years ago, so when I came to this town, drove by with Dawn, and I looked over, and she said, "That's our central fire department." I said, "What?" And then I got to go in there. And I said, "This is where these guys have to operate out of?" I go, and they do the job they do. Amazing. Something came to light at a Salvation Army meeting we had with the state regarding Exit 4A. And we started talking about something that Captain Thomas brought something up to me, that the design they have for the 4A coming in on Folsom Road is going to be counterproductive to them entering and exiting their facility. So we started talking. And I thought to myself, well, what a better idea than to close Central Fire Station, reconfigure things, make a safety complex right over there and let the state pick up part of the tab. Whether it's possible or a daydream or not, I don't know. But I thought that it was a great idea to apply if it could happen. Because like Captain Tom, what a better place to have our central fire station than right there. Or a safety complex in general. It would give the fire department access to the highway, and would give us a generalized availability to pretty much anywhere we wanted to go in town if the central fire station needed. Once again, funding. How we would pay for it, I don't know. It's a pipe dream. I hope the state would have some insight and some availability to help us with this. I guess it's all in the case that we plead to them. But that's my idea for that. Thank you.
So we're going to start to wrap up. I just want to thank all the candidates for coming and all of you for coming and asking questions. I'd also like to give a big round of applause to these two gentlemen over here. And Ernie for putting this on and for the VFW for hosting it. And tomorrow night, if you're not already aware, we're going to do this again with the school board candidates. So hopefully everybody will come out for that or be online. I don't know if it'll be streamed, but it will be on cable again tomorrow. So please join in. And Richard's going to wrap up with a few comments. So.
Oh, you got closing comments by the candidates.
Oh, I'm sorry. Closing comments by the candidates. My apologies. So, start down there? All right. They seem to have elected you, Brian.
No problem. I'll be brief. So thank everybody for coming out. I thank all the volunteers, Richard for putting this on, Mark for hosting. I just want to bring us back to 2015 real quick. We were a community that was divided, and it was tough to see. But out of that, I decided to run again for District 4 Council. And the council, my fellow councilors, put me up for chair that year. So I was very, very happy about that. I believe that was because of the experience that I brought. And what we did in that first year, we set some goals. Number one, we needed a town administrator in this town because we've had town administrators going in and out like a revolving door. And so what we did that first year is we brought Dave Cameron in. And Dave Cameron's been there for almost 3 years. And he likes the job. We brought a professional in, and I think that was great. Number two, the next thing that we had to do is we had to deal with 7 union contracts. Some of those contracts hadn't been looked at for years. So, in that same year, we got all 7 of those contracts completed in all 5 years, which was amazing if you kind of look at it. And I can say that the first 2 years of those contracts cost nothing to the taxpayer. So we've come a long way since 2015. We're doing a lot of great things. I'm excited to be part of this council. I would hope that people in District 4 would continue to put me back there. I've got a lot more to offer. I've got the experience. And like I said earlier, I've heard about the Exit 4A thing since the 1980s when people were like, it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen. And I'm like, it's going to happen. So I like being an optimist, and I like to see things come to fruition, 4A's coming through, and I still see some of the people that say it's never going to happen. So I have a big smile and I just say it's going to happen. So I thank everybody for coming out. I'd appreciate your vote on March 12th. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you to everyone for coming out tonight, and for those at home watching through social media or cable. I'm very honored to be able to be up here again this evening and to run another campaign for re-election. Back in 2015-16 when I decided to run, I platformed that I don't have all the answers. I'm not a politician. I never was, never will be, and I don't have any intention on that. I pride myself in just being a family guy. I take care of my 5 kids and my wife, and I love Derry. My kids live here. This is the only place they have lived, although they range from 6 to 16. My goal is to make Derry the place to be for my family, my friends' family, my friends. You know, I love it here. I've been up here over 20 years, and I couldn't imagine myself being anywhere else. This is where I want to be. This is where I want to, you know, have my resting days. You know, this council that's currently sitting has done a lot. When we ran back 3 years ago, public safety was the #1 issue. To date, I still support public safety on all aspects, and I'll continue to do so. Like Councilman Churchill said, we settled 7 contracts, some of which were outstanding, which has a benefit to the community. You know, if all the wheels aren't greased, then things aren't going to run smoothly. You know, the employees, through the dark days, they hung in there, and they persevered. They showed up to work every day, regardless of what was being, you know, done at the time. There was a divided town. This council has worked very hard together, and I would appreciate your vote to continue to do so, to work with this council that's currently sitting. We've been very aggressive as far as economic development and increasing the tax basis. Ryan Hill, water, which we talked, I think Councilman Morgan talked about earlier. Me personally, I consider myself the constituent. You know, I like to hear from people, so if you have any questions, concerns, comments, or anything like that, always feel free to reach out, and don't be stranger.
What a long, long, strange trip it's been, I guess. 3 years, seems like yesterday that me and Don were being tossed out of meetings 4 or 5 times. For really not anything other than expressing our opinions. I don't ever want to see this town go in that course again. I don't think people know the reason why I got involved in this town and trying to make a difference is I came home because they had canceled Derry Fest, and we can throw a rock from our house and hit McGregor Park. And Dawn was crying. She's like, they've canceled Derry Fest. I wait, what are you talking about? And I made some phone calls and asked, and I was told absolutely, we need funding and so on and so forth. And that's actually put the fire under my feet to try to make a difference in town. And I've spent 3 years putting a lot of time and effort into making things better and the things that I haven't been involved with. Derry Fest is a perfect example of that. I think anybody who's involved with that will tell you that my innovation and my insight to that whole organization has been beneficial. Salvation Army will tell you the same thing. If you're smart, you take the things God has given me, which the gift of gab. I'm horrible in public speaking like this, but I assure you if I alone have a much better etiquette. And I take that, and I like to take the prominence that comes along with getting involved in town and make sure the right people get influence, such as the Salvation Army. And it's amazing how much you see the outcome and the result. I think I can bring a lot of innovation and a lot of good ideas to this council. I like the place it's going, I'd like to keep it on that, and I'd like to actually accelerate the course that it's on. So I hope I can get your vote on March 12th. Thank you.
Mark, thank you, Mark Connors. Thank you, Richard Tripp. Thank you to the VFW for hosting this event. Thank you for all the people that showed up tonight and sacrificed an evening to spend with 4 guys up here. This is an election that is about, in the council at large race, this is an election about ideology. My opponent has a much different ideology than I do. He has a much different love for this community than I do. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody that has afforded me the privilege to serve as your council. I think that that election day back in 2016, I think it took me 2 days to realize that I actually won. And I made a promise to myself that I would never compromise the office that I hold. I would never do anything to financially gain from that office, and that I would always carry it in the highest regard and highest respect. And I can tell you that it has been a privilege to serve this community. It's been a privilege to be able to help the people that we've helped. And it's been a privilege to serve with the 6 other counselors that I've served with. You know, we didn't always get along, but you didn't see that. What you saw was a cohesive unit of people working together to solve problems. And that's what the council should be about. The council should be about the best and the brightest. It should be about those people that when you make that vote, that's just as important to you as it is to everybody else. And that you basically execute a contract when you make that vote. And that contract is expectation. Expectation to lead, expectation to be civil, expectation to work together as a team, and expectation to do your job. We didn't win 6 Super Bowls by not doing our job in New England. So I'll use Bill Belichick as much as I can. We must do our job. So whether I'm here for another 3 years or my opponent is, I trust in the fact that the people of Derry deserve the very best. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that I've been able to do in the last 3 years and those that I've been able to work with.
Well, we're about done. The Veterans of Foreign Wars here in Derry. I want to thank everybody in the audience for coming tonight. We want to thank you for your questions. I want to thank the candidates for coming tonight to answer those questions. I think showing this video on the cable channel will give people that are voting a lot of insight into where the candidates stand. I want to thank Mark for moderating it. So, and I want to thank Taylor Library, our co-sponsor, for doing the heavy lifting of signing everybody. Right? I think there's some, you notice that Kevin Coyle is not here tonight. All the candidates were invited to participate in the forum. He told us that he would probably be in Florida, but we kept a seat for him so that should he show up, he would have an opportunity to participate. As Mark said, there's another forum tomorrow night, same time, same bat channel, same bat time. The doors will open at 6 o'clock. The function will begin at 6:30. It's going to be the school board. And hopefully we'll have just as many people show up to ask questions. So, Jenna?
Or more.
We're going to have to update the rules. So to make it sure that, should time allow, that people that are, participating via the internet have an opportunity to ask questions. So we'll do that next year. So anybody, thank you for coming tonight, and good night.